Tom, thanks for showing up today.
Hey, thanks
It's
for
good to
having
see
us.
you at DFI. How was the conference?
It was a great show. Great show. Lots of familiar faces and some new ones as well. So
How long have you been doing the show?
this is actually my second DFI show.
Okay.
We did the tunneling and mining one
Okay.
in Dallas earlier this year, and but this is my first big DFI show that I've been to them before to walk them, but this is the first one that we've had a booth at. So
Nice. It was our first too. It was fun. It was productive. What for people that don't know who you are, I know who you are, and our group knows who you are. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Who
Sure.
are you? What do you do?
So I'm the national sales manager for NCFI Polyurethanes, Geotechnical division, and so we have a full line of dual component and single component polyurethane products for ground improvement, concrete leveling, void fill.
So it's not just like foam that is sprayed. It's
Right. We do have a spray foam division
Yeah.
and a roofing foam division, but all the products that I work with are for, we call it our geotechnical division. Pretty much everything's going in the ground in some way, shape, or form. And there are a lot of different forms in which we use it. It's not just for concrete lifting. That is probably the most commonly known and thing that we do. But we have a product line of like over 25 different systems for the dual component systems
Yeah.
that can be used in many different ways.
So, and not to cut you off, but what did you wake up one day and just go, all right, cool, I'm going to go shoot foam in the ground, or I'm going to go look at foam, or foam's exciting? Or
Ironically, I was in the restaurant business for like a dozen years.
Really?
As a manager. And one of my old college buddies called me up, and he had taken a job with a waterproofing foundation repair company and was looking for an operations manager.
Okay.
And I
yeah,
said,
dude,
I
if you
have
can,
no idea.
if you can cut it in the restaurant space and like keep that
Yeah.
on the rails, yeah.
And I had been kind of looking to get out of that, and he called me up and said, "Hey, I need somebody. I think you'd be a good fit for it." I said, "I have no idea. Like I've never even been in a crawl space in my life, but I think I'm willing to give it a shot." So
Was it a like residential foundation repair company or
mostly,
Okay.
mostly, yeah,
All right.
probably 90% residential, 10% commercial. Like
How long
commercial,
ago was that?
Back in '07.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, big career shift.
yeah, major career shift, and
Was that before the turn down, or like right at the?
actually,
right
I
at the
guess I would have been
beginning,
there
or-
from 2003 to 2007. I started my own business in 2007.
Got it.
So
Okay. So
went
right
out-
in
went out on
the
my
middle
own.
of the turn down.
Yeah, right before it, and
Yeah.
not a great time to start a business, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah,
But
for sure.
but eventually that led me to selling, the business that I had and going to work for NCFI. So towards the tail end of my time with that company, I ended up doing a couple of jobs with Eurotech, and
Oh, yeah.
they needed piers and we needed poly, so we did some jobs together. And then when I left to start my company, I had a non-compete, so started off just doing mold remediation, but
Okay.
ended up after my non-compete was up, getting more into those other things. And they asked me, the Eurotech guys asked me to, just look at jobs for them, so they didn't have to fly somebody out there. They didn't have anybody
nice.
in the
Okay.
area.
Yeah.
And so did several jobs, or several years worth of work for them, and then bought my own rig, and then eventually
So you
ended
would
up coming
look
to work
at
for
you'd
NCFI.
go look at the jobs, or they'd say, "Hey, I got
Yep.
a lead, or I've got
Yep.
this opportunity. Can you go scope it for
Yep.
us?" And okay.
Yep. And did well with it, and ended up buying my own rig, wrapped that into that part of the business, sold all that, and came to work for NCFI. I was actually the first rep that they hired. Pat Burchett, who's our tech manager, national tech manager, he was kind of the go-to guy in NCFI at the time. The spray foam reps were selling this product line, but they didn't really know that much about it. And Pat was kind of always the go-to guy. He really kind of dug his feet into it.
So the guys that were spraying insulation and spraying it in, builder stuff, they would say, "Okay, well, I might need to lift a driveway," or
Well, some of them,
something.
yeah. I mean, they've got 90% of the equipment that they need to go out and do that. The rigs are essentially the same. There's a different gun that we use, but other than that, most of them, yeah, a lot of them dip their toes in it a little
Okay.
bit and stuff. So, but and then we've got companies that's all they do, is concrete leveling and this geotechnical kind of work. But But
So
anyway,
you get brought on as the first rep at NCFI, and
yeah, I mean, Pat led the charge, and one of the spray foam guys stayed on and did that up in Minnesota, and then Pat, and then I came on board, and then now we have 4 territory managers that work under me. Pat has his tech division with Ronnie and Steve, and then Josh Burkaw is our executive vice president over that division.
No, so, Josh wasn't there at that time, right?
He came on board. No, not at the time. Not when I started. That's correct. So the company he used to run, Geotech, merged. They had 2 different divisions,
the ICR and
then the USA, and one consumed the other, and that's when we jumped on bringing him on board because of his background and experience. So
nice,
and he's done a great job growing it. I was there as a territory manager for about 4.5 years. Went over to the contractor side for a little while.
Where so you were 4.5 years getting it built out, and then
right.
Wanted to go do something else for a little while.
Yeah.
Or got an offer you couldn't refuse,
yep,
or whatever.
Exactly. And it was a great experience. I learned a lot. I worked for one of the world's largest specialty geotechnical contractors, and we used poly in ways that I don't know that it's ever been used before.
What do you think? So like change always happens, right? Like change is always going to happen in business and life and all of those things. But what do you think? That choosing to change, that choice that you made, like, what do you think the most valuable lesson or lessons that you learned from that experience?
I think running the really large projects that we did, but also just working for a company that does pretty much every type of ground improvement technique known to man. I learned just a ton from that alone, but learning how the projects are run, finding ways to help. We developed some new techniques. They would have a problem on a job, and we would rush out to help fill a void or whatever was needed. That was a good portion. Probably 25% of my work was, hey, Tom, can you get a rig out here? We need to pump some poly behind this wall or whatever. Right. And so that
you had that one project, I think, and it may have been with them or not, but it was a project that always stuck out to me was where the builder had excavated for this big structure, and there was like 20 feet of wall in the ground, and the foundation footprint wasn't right.
Correct.
I kind of remember that.
Yeah, it was a sheet pile foundation wall for what was going to be a parking garage for a high-rise condo building in Savannah, Georgia, and the layout was done a little bit incorrectly, so some of the walls were further out than they needed to be. They had already had us there to fill in the bellies of the sheet pile wall with our Stratofill spray system, low exotherm system. So we were doing that to kind of flatten the wall out for them to put their waterproofing membrane up and also save on the pounds of concrete, not necessarily the dollars, but the weight of all that concrete. But some of them were further out than they were supposed to be.
Yeah, so you added like 2 foot of wall instead of 2 foot of wall. You're adding like 2 foot of foam.
Exactly,
just spraying it.
Sprayed. They pulled string lines for us and said spray out to here, and that'll get it back to where it's supposed to be. So
that's awesome.
Worked out really well.
Also, really cool that you can that's a structural product.
Yeah,
it's not just spraying some foam. That's
even our lightest weight system in the dual component systems is going to be stronger than most all dirt. It's not as strong as concrete, but it's going to be as strong as the dirt. And that's what you got to keep in mind. That's what we're trying to replace.
We're not trying to replace concrete. We're trying to fix it, lift it, confine it, stabilize it, things like that. What do you think? So from that, what was your favorite project, or what's something that was really cool that you really liked?
I did get to work at a hydroelectric power plant in a tunnel 750 feet in the ground, grouting all the cracks in the concrete structure. They had some exfiltration going on, and that was a really cool project.
Explain exfiltration for people that don't understand what that word means.
So this hydroelectric power plant, you have a reservoir up on top of a mountain, man-made reservoir with I call it the bathtub drain, but this big 50-foot diameter drain.
So water's coming
tapers
from a
down
creek or a river or the mountain or
no, they build the reservoir.
Okay.
They put the water up, pump the water up there, and they drop it down through the tunnel. Goes down 750 feet, turns, goes out a half mile, splits into 3 smaller, what they call penstock tunnels, that then go through the turbines, creating power, and dump into a lower reservoir. And then at night, they pump it all back up. And it's only 87% efficient, so it took like accountants and engineers to figure this whole thing out, because what they do is they buy on paper, they buy energy from their nuclear facilities or their any of the other places, coal burning plants and whatnot, on the cheap at night to pump it up, because when they're producing energy during the day, during the peak times, they're doing it dirt cheap because they're not burning the fuel. They're just dumping water through the tunnel.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it had they had done a routine inspection, and there's another tunnel above the main tunnel that was called an adit, and the adit has got all these drains in it that they drilled before they dug the big tunnel. And those have piezometers on them, which is a way of measuring water flow.
Yep.
And after the inspection, when they rewatered the tunnels, the piezometers started going haywire. Like, it just kept getting worse and never leveled off. And they knew they had a problem.
So they were losing water.
They were losing
every
water
cycle.
into the
They were
mountain.
losing water,
Yeah.
which then, so that water was going through cracks,
Right.
which then potentially was creating
Exactly.
voids underneath it.
Well, the stability of the tunnel is the big concern, right?
Yeah.
And
because if it collapses or separates, then that's a bad deal.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a 35-foot diameter concrete tunnel. Like I said, splits off into 3 smaller tunnels. It goes down to like 19 feet, and then at the very end down to 10 feet. But anywhere that first in that whole what they call bifurcation zone, where it splits out into 3, we went out.
Why isn't it trifurcation? I'm just curious. Like bifurcate, I'm thinking 2, but it's 3. Like, I don't know.
It does it one at a time, though.
Okay.
It splits once and then it splits again.
That makes sense.
There you go.
What's once,
and then it converts over.
Then again.
After it splits off into 3, it turns into steel.
Okay.
So we also had to grout around that interface.
So on the steel, you had to grout around it, or
right where it changed over.
Okay.
We had to do some grouting around that area as well.
So how did you? I mean, you're like 750 feet deep in the ground. Like, how do you execute that? I mean, are you just some random dude in a truck and you go out there and get it done? Or
it was a challenging job to put together, because all we could see was plans. I did a tour of the plant, and they're like, okay, you're going 7 stories underground, and then there's a gantry crane that you can lower stuff down to that level, and then there's another gantry crane
like
that
a
goes
35-foot opening as well, or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's another gantry crane that goes over the penstocks, and that penstocks are exposed at that point, right before they get to the turbine. And there's a door with about 100 bolts on it, 3 foot by 4 foot. Every bit of equipment that we had to take into that tunnel had to go through that door.
Wow.
Yeah. So we hired Sunbelt Rentals to do all the scaffolding. They had to take all that scaffolding in there, build scaffolds for us, move them as we needed them, wherever we needed them. And
so you didn't just rent it and then y'all built it. You rented them to come in and set it up.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And they had 3 guys on staff for the entire project. Some days they did nothing. Some days they, moved the scaffolds around 2 or 3 times for us, just depending on what we needed.
Love that.
So it was a really cool project. It was neat to have to plan something like that without being able to really see it first and get a true understanding. So the first thing I did was I was the first one in the tunnel. I was like, I got to get in here to see what we're working with, right? I wanted to know. We got a bunch of those fishing magnets, those rare earth magnets, and stuck them to the ceiling and strung our lights on those. And we had power boxes that we strung up on the side, because there's always about that much water in the bottom constantly. Just
so you're not walking
never
around
dry.
in tennis shoes,
right? We took the scaffolding pieces and laid them in the metal part of the tunnel, because you needed something to keep from slipping. Yeah. And so they just use those as walking planks, and then move the scaffolds around. That was a single component project. Lots of single component grouting, and then in the adit they were actually drilling. They brought a drill in there, and we're doing cementitious grouting from up top.
Okay.
You could hear that drill over your head.
Wow.
Please don't drill through the top of the tunnel. So it was a little nerve-wracking. Yeah.
What kind of challenges, like what went wrong? Did everything go smooth, or
it went pretty smooth. It really did. There was a engineering firm, HDR, was hired by the owners.
Okay.
Which is Oglethorpe Power. They had their guys in there telling us, what to grout, what not to, and they said, well, just grout the ones that are producing water. I said, as soon as you grout the ones that are producing water, it's going to come out the ones that aren't.
Yeah.
And so we were in there probably longer than what was initially budgeted for, but we still kept on track with what was going on up top. So we didn't extend the project any. We just had more days in the tunnel than initially anticipated.
So when you do a project like that, where you're leak sealing and single component and all that, I mean, what's the expected shelf life of that? Is it just, all right, we're fixed for good, everything's going to be good, or?
Typically, that's going to be a pretty permanent fix.
Okay.
It's with the kind of forces that are exerted on that tunnel, and he gave us some numbers that I don't recall off the top of my head, but they were impressive. The amount of pressure that's created. I would say that it may have a shorter lifespan than a normal job, like a basement or something that's just got some hydrostatic pressure against it versus millions and millions of gallons of water flowing through it at a high speed. It's probably going to eventually need to be done again. So.
Got it.
Typically, we say, these are repairs that are about the life of the structure, but this is a structure that's going to be around a long time, and it's really high usage, so a lot different than a typical waterproofing job for sure.
I like it. So you spent 4 years there, or a couple of years?
2.5 years at Keller, and then Josh asked me to come back. They'd grown enough to the point where he needed help, and he wanted a sales manager, so they created the position for me, and I'm back, and I'm been back for a little over 2 years now, and so
what do you think? So you started 07, right, or 03?
03. Yeah.
So 03, from the time from 03, from your basic experience, there were probably a couple of different polys at that time, maybe some single components, some other things that you were educating me on, like acrylites and acrylamides and all these things that I know a little bit about. But like, how has poly changed, or how has poly changed at NCFI over those years?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, we basically sold, like less than a half a dozen systems probably. We had a single component back then. It's kind of been shelved and taken over with the newer system, the 120. But we've developed a lot of these dual component systems over the years based on needs for specific projects, and some new things. I mean, at first it was pretty much just concrete lifting.
Yeah, like you got a slab that's sunk in, or a warehouse slab that's sunk in.
Right.
Inject it, drill a hole, pump some foam, lift it up.
But then projects would come along with larger voids, didn't necessarily need to lift, just wanted to fill the void. Well, polyurethanes get hot. And so we started, we looked to we actually just looked at our library of foams and said, hey, what do we have already?
So interestingly enough, though, like, you didn't just one day go, okay, polyurethanes get hot, we got to fill voids. Maybe somebody like try to fill a void, maybe things caught on fire or smoldering, or what occurred that made scientists get together and say, we need to develop something that's low exotherm, or like what kind of things
the first use for our low exotherm systems was in the oil and gas industry.
Okay.
When they're putting in pipelines, they put in these things called trench breakers, and they used to use sandbags, but that puts a lot of men or women down in a ditch, unsafe. They don't. It's an excavated ditch, and a lot of men, a lot of labor, and just a lot more dangerous. And so polyurethane is a great solution there. It can be done from the top. The breakers go on slopes. So if you're installing a pipeline on a slope, it's going to be buried. When you backfill that slope, if you don't have the breakers in there, the dirt will just wash out. You get your first rain, and it's just going to wash out. So the polyurethane, they spray, basically building a wall every X number of feet, depending on the slope and design of it. But it's going to be thick. It's going to be, they needed to be able to do it quickly. And so they said, okay, well, we need to make this a low exothermic system. And so the chemists did their job and made that happen. And so that one's a spray system. It's a very fast system. It can be put on a vertical surface. That's what we used on that wall that we were talking about earlier. Yeah. Same stuff. But for void filling, it doesn't get much spread, right? It's because it's so fast. So we wanted a slower system. And so we came up and said, okay, well, we've got this system that was designed to fill barges, that have started to get rust holes in them and stuff like that. So it's a Coast Guard approved system that we already had on the shelf. We were already selling it to the flotation division. And so we just like, okay, we'll use that. Well, the only problem with that was it's not hydrophobic. Hydrophobic meaning works well in the presence of water. It was not hydrophobic. And rather than, replace it or try and make it hydrophobic rather,
right,
we just created another system. So we came up with the 24039, a little bit faster than the 070, but it is, it's hydrophobic. So
if you're
same
needing to
density,
fill voids in water, right, or like storm drains,
right? I mean, a lot of these voids we're dealing with are going to have some water in them from from rain and whatnot. So we needed something that was going to be hydrophobic. So just eventually develop these systems to fit needs in the market. But the market has definitely changed. I mean, like I said, it's way more than just lifting concrete nowadays.
Yeah, for sure.
Lots of different stuff.
What do you think? What do you think? Maybe in a space that's really interesting that you would have never thought foam would be used in the geotechnical space?
Yeah, well, I mean, deep injection has been around for a long time. It was patented by Urotech for a while, and that kept a lot of people out of it. It's been interesting working with engineers, showing them how that can work in conjunction with or in place of compaction grouting, for instance.
Yeah.
Not something that I didn't think would ever happen, but it is becoming more accepted than it used to be. Engineers are getting behind it and like the idea. It's it's lightweight. It's a lot less invasive and a lot less messy than compaction grouting. And when you've got hard to access areas, I've done work in a high fructose corn syrup plant.
Okay.
And 60,000 square foot building, and it's literally got tanks on probably 50,000 square feet, and they're all interconnected with pipes and stuff. And you can't get any equipment in there to do compaction grouting or any kind of cementitious grouting.
Yeah. You got to bring in like a hose and a gun and
hand drills and just bring the hose in. And that was a pretty neat project. That was in Ohio. During the dead of winter, which made it really fun.
So how'd you navigate around that?
We actually rented a heated shipping container, one of the ones that has a little office. So I had a little office to work with, and then we kept the shipping container warm to keep all because I think it was
kept the material
19 drum sets of material that we brought up, and just put them all in there and kept it all warm.
You didn't run the truck in the container though?
No,
because that would be bad.
Yeah.
All right. Just curious. So I mean, so you take this warm material, and you got the truck that's outside in the cold, and then fire it up.
The trailer was heated too, but and then we used the heat blankets. But yeah, that was something that we had to navigate, keeping all that material warm. It's definitely worth the extra money. Trying to warm that stuff up from an overnight cold night is pretty hard.
Yeah. And on the materials, so something that's important that I don't think that a lot of people really know or, even talk about, but the material has a shelf life, right?
Correct.
And if we buy something from you, you post a expiration date.
Yep.
And it's not the same as if like you want to eat a year-old food, it's probably going to make you sick, but like with your foam, is there like degradates, or it's just totally expired, or it's not going to really work? Or
so the A side has a 2-year shelf life, so it's a little bit longer. The B side product is, that's what's going to be different in every system is your B side.
Yep.
The A side's always the same; it's universal. But the B side, some of them are more susceptible to aging than others. For instance, the spray foams use an HFO blowing agent, and blowing agents are what helps speed it up and react, right? And so once the drum is open, it's easy for that blowing agent to off gas, right? And so it's got that shelf life. Almost every single one of our geotech systems is water blown. Doesn't use a blowing agent. Some of the Stratofill does have a little bit of blowing agent in it. The trench breaker foam has a little bit of blowing agent in it, so it's more susceptible to a shorter shelf life. So that's one of the reasons we typically,
so like 6 months, or
yes,
okay,
6 months, and so that's a special order item. We don't blend that until it gets ordered.
Okay. Do you think it's important for people, if they're ordering, or if they have a contractor that's doing their project? Do you think it's important for them? Hey, do you mind showing me the expiration date on that material?
We get there are times where
I'm meaning from the contractor.
Up.
Do you think it's important that people ask that?
Yeah, I mean it's a legit question. Reality is it's probably going to be fine a little bit past the expiration date, but we warranty it to the expiration date. The biggest thing is if it makes good foam, then it's probably okay to use,
right? Because you're making it on site. You're manufacturing a product on site.
And typically, what happens is it's going to slow it down. If it's past its expiration, it's probably going to react.
So if you have like a 7-second foam, it's going to be like a 15 or whatever,
like that,
whatever it may be.
But I mean, we recommend we stay within that. We have the blending capacity to keep you guys with fresh material, and that's what we try to do. So rotation is very important. Having a warehouse manager who keeps that stuff, rotated, making sure you're using the old stuff first, and all that good stuff is important.
Yeah. So your experience being a contractor, coming to the manufacturing side, going back to be, working with the national industrial contractor, and then, back at NCFI, scaling that, and then working with us, right? Like Groundworks, national company. What is your experience been working with us?
It's been great. We love you guys as a customer because you're so big and spread out. We know that we've got good coverage throughout the country, and that's awesome. Love what you guys have been doing with the new commercial endeavor, because after almost 20 years, the sidewalks and driveways get a little boring, to be honest with you. So it's exciting to be working with the commercial stuff, and you guys have put together a heck of a team. You've got the cream of the crop.
I think the thing that I like as well is growing up in the industry. It wasn't family, but I started in the industry so young,
right?
Is seeing the evolution of it, but also just recognizing that the good people that are out there, because you work with tons of good contractors,
Mm-hmm.
Us being one of them, and there's a lot of other good contractors out there, but like seeing the evolution of this collective of really smart people and hardworking people that are pushing more towards education and testing,
right?
Getting things out there in front of the public. The thing that blows my mind is we were looking at a study not long ago that was like 20% of the public across the board even knows what geotechnical polyurethane is.
Right.
And engineers, even a smaller group of them. Like at the Deep Foundation Institute, it's hard to be a geoforensic engineer or engineer that hasn't seen some type of foam or whatnot. But in the engineering community overall, if you're not in like deep foundations or forensic engineering specifically for soil-related issues, you may not even know what we do.
Right. Exactly.
And what's out there.
And that's for our presence at a show like this. That's what it's all about is trying to educate, get more people in the know about what it's for, what it can be used for, and just educate. I mean, we look more for engineers at shows like this than anything.
Yeah.
We try and schedule some lunch and learns, things like that, and that's really the goal for these. So shows like this are hard for us to measure success in.
Yeah.
As far as sales goes, but if I get 3 lunch and learns scheduled out of this, to me that's a win. For a show like this.
So you're national sales director or sales manager. What's your technical
national
title?
Sales manager.
Sales manager. So for people, and this is really interesting, for people just getting in, a lot of people getting out of college or changing careers or whatnot, they think sales is like, oh, go get a sale, like go knock on a door and sell a product, or hey, I've got this trinket. And,
right.
But business sales and professional sales is totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a completely different setting than being a salesperson, right? What would you say to younger people or people wanting to get into the trade or into sales? What are some things that are important that they need to consider before they get into sales?
Good question. So for me, sales is really about relationships and building, relationships with our contractors, right? Mm-hmm. You guys have a whole different thing. You're selling individual jobs, but for us, it's about a long-term relationship, right? The 2.5 years I was gone at Keller, I was still getting phone calls from some of my contractors, asking me questions instead of their territory manager. They would literally call me instead, because it's just the relationship that we built over the years. Stayed in touch with them, still had all their phone numbers in my phone, and I like that part of it. I think that's one of the reasons I came back to the manufacturing side, was that I prefer these relationship type sales versus one-offs, one at a time things. And you do that too on the commercial side with what you guys are doing. You're building relationships with GCs and engineers who are going to say, hey, these are the guys you need to use and go to. But I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, I was never a big fan of sales that were just kind of one-off, one-time sales. I like the relationship part of it. Not every job's going to be that way.
I think that's professional selling, right? Yeah. Being a professional salesperson, and recognizing that. Look, at the end of the day, being really good at business-to-business sales or any kind of sales that's more than the end. I sold you a trinket. Bye. See you later. Never call me again. To the relationship sale is that it's about being a servant. Yeah. Right. It's how can I serve you? What's your objective? Yep. What are you trying to accomplish? How can I serve your needs and get you from point A to point B? But one of the things that I like, that I'm really passionate about in that regard, is when I was younger, I was handed this book. I was like 18, 19. I was handed this book called Raving Fans. I don't know if you've ever...
I did not read that one.
It's a phenomenal book. Yeah. I think it sold like 987,000 copies or something like that. Never like a million book winner. But the concept, it really talked about how do we create raving fans? Where somebody... you provide them such exceptional service, or you gave them such a good experience that they go out and rave about you, right? They go to the gas station and they're like, dude, I just had the best blah, 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 blah. You need to call this guy. Yeah. Or investment planner, or, hey, my banker made me 10X on my thing. And I've always been a really big fan of that concept, because if you start like your process with the end goal of creating a raving fan, then you have people out there talking about you, right? And you're not even working. So people are like, oh, hey, I got an issue. Well, great. Call this guy, or call this guy, or
nothing makes me. Those are the best phone calls I ever get. Is when somebody says, they told me to call you. You're the guy to talk to. And this is the longest term thing I've ever done in my life as far as experience goes. I've been doing this longer than anything else in life, and 19 years of putting poly in the ground. It's millions and millions of pounds, but I never really considered myself to be the guru or the expert, but
Yeah.
I guess some people kind of have said that, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, we'll tell people to call me and
Maybe
say,
like
he's the guy you need
Super
to call,
Foam,
and that's great.
Super Tom, Tom Foam, Tom Foam,
Tom Foam.
Tom Foam.
Just like Tom
that'd
Foam.
That'd be legit. That's cool.
So.
Speaking of the dudes, I want to bring Andrew Jones into the conversation. Looks like he's somewhere around here. Oh, let's go, Andrew Jones.
How's it going, guys?
Hey.
What's up, Tom?
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, man? How's it going?
It's going good. Thanks for having
So
me.
yeah, absolutely. How was your experience at the DFI this week?
It was really good. Got to walk around. What people probably don't talk about is meeting a lot of your competitors, and getting to know those guys that you see a lot about or hear a lot about. Getting to connect with them, collaborate on ideas, and then meet all the different manufacturers and other industries that are there that are kind of, twofold. Maybe it's not something that we do, but it's been around for a long time, big companies. So it was cool, meet those connections, educate myself, and then obviously create a game plan for future business.
What's something that really well in our space? Like, obviously you've been with us a long time. You've been on our team a lot, but for those that may or may not know, like, what's something that you're really passionate about that you know a lot about?
I would say ground improvement. Just if I had to put like a one specific product on it, it would be polyurethane. Did that for 7 years. Just last year, as a foreman, completed over 730 projects.
That's awesome.
So it was a crazy year last year, and it's been a boom pretty much ever since. Still putting it in the ground.
So we're talking about this earlier, Tom. You guys sell the foam, the trucks, the equipment, and everything that you need, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
What's something that what's something that's super important when you own tools?
Keeping them clean.
Maintenance, right?
Maintenance, exactly.
100%.
So as a foreman, you've got to go around other branches and see different companies or see different things and all of that. What's the worst thing for you as a foreman down if your tools go down?
It's just, well, one, you're gonna have the downtime, so obviously that's strain on the customer.
Strain on the company.
Strain on the company.
Because you went from XGP to now I'm just burning time.
Yeah, and let's just say it's your only rig, right? Well, then you're pushing back other projects and different things like that, so it affects, several weeks down the road. So, you're affecting future customers, future business. So it's important to take care of that stuff, and especially if you're going to let it sit, proper storage, letting it sit over the weekend, make sure everything's clean on Friday before you, hang it up, or just the daily disciplines.
Yeah.
And this is equipment that likes to be used, doesn't like to sit, and so it's important. But you guys are you're putting it through the ringer. You guys are pumping every day. I don't know if you guys are working some Saturdays or not here and there, but sometimes it's tough to find that time. But you got to make that time for maintenance. It's important.
Yeah. So walk me through how much time does it take so call it a gun, whether it's GX7, PX, whatever, PS4, Mix Master,
Game Station.
Yeah.
The fun
what
tool.
what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? Like how much time is that involved?
In my opinion,
Not that much.
Not that much. If you're an experienced foreman, and you've been doing it for a while, you can break down the gun, clean all the parts, and put it back together in 10 minutes.
Yep. And it's important. It doesn't like to sit. We've got the A side chemical is very sensitive to moisture and any exposure to it.
Yeah, it has what is that stuff they call it? Crystallizes.
It'll crystallize.
What is it? ISO.
Yeah.
Got it.
And so for long term storage, there's a proper way to purge that out and store something. There's chemicals specifically designed for storage. We've got some contractors up north that literally they park their rigs for the winter and they put snow plows on the front of their trucks and have their guys out plowing the roads instead of
Sweet.
shooting poly because the ground's frozen. And on the residential side, a big portion, would you say, is outside work, right? I mean, you do some basements and some slab on grade homes,
garages, sheds,
right,
random stuff,
but a lot of it's outside work. And so for the wintertime, some of these guys, they just hang it up for a couple of months and go snowmobiling or skiing or whatever, and that's just the way it is. It can be done, and the commercial work, you do find a little bit more interior work, which is nice, but it is still a challenge, right? Because you're still dealing with the cold, not the ground being frozen, but keeping the chemicals warm and all that stuff, like we discussed earlier. That's a challenge as well. So
there's a fair amount of science in, like, let's just say it's a commercial building and the truck is sitting outside in the ambient cold, but you have your heated line on the inside of the house. Well, or on the inside of the building, that cold to hot transfer can be interesting too. So there's a lot of, technical skill that has to be applied, whether it's turning up your heat, barrel warmers. I mean,
putting cardboard under your lines just to keep it off the cold concrete. There's all kinds of things you can do to improve the situation. But,
what are some big, what are some red flags for you if you're rolling on a job site, or you roll up to or you roll up to a competitor, or whatever it is, but like, are there some things that you can tell just by looking at somebody's truck, or if they've got the back open? Are there any big red flags you can go, that guy does not have a clue, or that dude is doing something wrong?
Yeah. Well, it's tough. There's a lot of extra tools, right? You can never have enough space in a rig. It seems like there's a lot of tools, and some of them are kind of big. You got a concrete saw. It's not it's not going to stick it in a cabinet, right, or a drawer. So there's a lot of stuff that, a well-designed rig is important, but having a place for everything is too. Because sometimes you open the doors and, like, I can't even walk into this rig. It's got so much stuff, so building the rigs to be able to carry all those tools in a good organized fashion is important, I think. But yeah, I mean,
for me, like, if I roll up to a job site and somebody's thrown everything out of their truck onto the ground to see, like, make space, I'm like, man, that doesn't look good.
Yeah. And you try to, on some projects, like a deep injection project, you can have all this tubing and stuff like that's got to come. Now, if you can have it delivered on site, that's the better way to do it, because those trailers have already got a pretty fair load on them, right? They're not really, the trucks are a little bit better for stuff like that, but you put, a couple 1,000 pounds of tubing in a trailer that's already kind of maxed out, you're going to wear it out pretty quick. But yeah, I mean, just disorganized and messy and, chemical everywhere. Those are the ones I worry about, like, if you have to park on the street because your trailer's constantly dripping, leaking chemical on the road, you don't want to put it in their driveway because you're afraid you're going to leak on, and stain their driveway. That's a bad sign right there.
I mean, I used to train polyforeman across the East Coast, and my number one thing, or my first test, is whenever you pull up to a customer's house, is there trash falling out of the cab of the truck? Like, that just shows a character trait, right? And then also, like, I'll be like, hey, man, where's your drill? Knowing if they can either tell me where it's at or not tell me where it's at. If I have to go in there and find it, then that tells me they don't have a process. So
speaking of that, one of the things that I'm really passionate about, or something that, like, how I create or how I get excited about and become a raving fan, is by recognizing process. I can tell, like, when somebody if I need to get a bid for something, or I need to get something fixed, first thing for me, dude, if a dude gets out of his car and walks across my front yard and misses the sidewalk, dude doesn't have a process, right? Like, number one, why are you going to, like, there's a sidewalk, dude. Like, get squared away. If you're going to cut corners that early in the game, come on. And then, like, comes inside, oh man, I need to go get my stuff outside, and then he, lights a smoke outside, and I'm like, all right, well, here we are. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, my favorite is, I mean, this is what I like about Groundworks, is that process, exactly what you're talking about, right? If we call a homeowner, commercial client, anything, like, hey, is there anywhere that you would like me to specifically park, or where I can enter the building? That way I'm not in the way, because there's nothing worse when you get up to a site, you pull in front of a loading dock, and here comes an 18-wheeler, and they're like, hey, man, you got to move. Like,
Yeah, you gotta move.
bad start.
Yeah.
So,
Or you pull into somebody's driveway to work on their front porch and find out they got to go to work, and you didn't even bother to ask them, hey, can I park in your driveway? Yeah.
absolutely.
Dude, the best customer service experience I had from start to finish, from salesperson coming out to install teams. One of the most memorable experiences I've ever had, and I'll share it with you. It's an alarm company. I forget what the alarm company was, but the guy called me beforehand, did the same thing. Said, hey, where do you want me to park? I can park in the driveway. I can park on the street. I can park around the corner. I can walk there. It doesn't matter. And so he was mindful there, and he just said, hey, look, my presentation's going to take about an hour and a half to figure out what your objective is and get all the way to giving you a proposal, and maybe another 10 minutes to fill out some paperwork to do business. And he was just straight up transparent, right?
And an agenda.
I'm like, cool, he has an agenda. He's got a process, knows what's going on. Dude pulls up just like he said he was going to. He gets out of his car. Dude rolls out a mat on my front porch. It was freaking awesome. It has company name, had his name on it. He rolls it out, takes his shoes off, puts all his tools, wipes everything off, and then brings everything inside. Right? I was just like, dude's got a freaking mat. Like, roll out a red carpet. What up?
It's pretty legit. I ain't gonna lie.
It was great. And he went through, asked me all the questions that got to what my customer why is, right? What my objective was, and basically answered everything I needed. I had some questions for him. He was right on time, did his thing. Left, was within the same time that he promised me. Left, cleaned his stuff up, rolled his stuff up. We did business. He said the crew's going to be here X day. When the crew showed up, they rolled out a mat. They did the same exact thing. I was like, for me, they could have been totally screwing me over, but they had a process, and I felt good about it.
Yeah,
and it looked good,
Yeah.
and it looked like they knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
So that's always important to me, or how I can spot a professional or spot an expert.
Yeah. And let me circle it back to like polyurethane rigs and our team. Like I've seen a lot here lately where like our guys are putting whiteboards in the truck, and they're taking the time to wipe the walls and write down their daily discipline so that their crew knows, making sure that they're taking care of their tools. If it's a weekend, they have a cooker, or whatever it is to soak the material or their parts in, making sure it's all nice and clean. So there are a lot of our crews are absolutely fantastic.
That's great
on getting that done.
And we have processes for everything, right? SOPs for everything. We measure everything. We monitor everything. That's one of the things that I really love about our group.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got any questions for Tom on the phone, man?
Yeah, absolutely. I started in lifting foams, right? Just like anybody else. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to know, or maybe get your thoughts on, is there like one foam that take care of all concrete? I mean, or do I have to switch it? I mean, I know it's kind of a silly question, but
we do have, like I said, a lot of different systems, but the majority of the contractors end up using, getting one lifting system that they're comfortable with and stick with, and it's a preference thing, for if we're getting somebody that's coming on board and switching over to us from one of our competitors, the first thing I ask them is, which one are you using? If I'm unfamiliar with it, I'll find the data sheet on it. I want to put them with something that they're comfortable with first. And then if, just kind of see, we have lifting systems that are really fast, and we have some that are a little bit slower. And your company uses both. You have some offices that are using our fastest system, and some that are using the next one down as far as speed for lifting. And it's really what you're comfortable with. Some people like that lightning speed of our fastest foam, so that it pinpoint lifting, but you don't get quite as much spread. So then you got to tighten up your grid a little bit and do some void filling here and there. But the big thing, I think, to your question, I know that low exotherm's great. You're not always going to have some with you, right? And
Right.
so if you do come across that big void, right, the sales guys probably aren't out there drilling holes. When I was doing it for myself, I did that, and I got almost all of those jobs. If I drilled a hole on the front end and showed the customer, hey, I'm going to find out how big your void is, so that I can give you an accurate bid. It's great, but not everybody's going to do that, right? And
Sure.
so when it's not done that way, you get surprises sometimes, and you got to adjust. So front porches in the South, big. Million ways to build a front porch. And some of those ways are not designed to last forever. I've seen porches that they poured a slab on a piece of plywood. That plywood's going to rot at some point in time.
100%.
Even if it's pressure treated, it's going to rot away.
Their cousin built that one.
Yeah. Or, they doweled rebar into the foundation. The rebar rusts, bends, falls, whatever. So it can be much worse than it looks on the face. And so if you don't have all that information, when the guy goes to drill the hole, if the drill falls through and just, there's a 2 or 3 foot void there, you got to take your time if you're going to use a lifting foam to fill that void. I don't expect the guys to run back to the shop and say, hey, we need some low exotherm foam to fill this big void. But if it is big enough, let's say it's one of these big southern porches, 40 feet, the whole width of the front of the house, 8 foot deep, and there's a 2 foot void underneath all of it, then they need to punt. They need to say, listen, we didn't realize that this was this bad. Because first of all, you're going to go over what was probably estimated, right?
Over, yeah.
So your boss needs to know that,
Yeah.
hey, we've got a problem here before you just go off and start pumping a bunch of foam. But more importantly, if they do decide to proceed with the work, which they're going to need to do, right, then it would be better to come back and do it with the low exotherm. It's going to be a lot faster.
That way you're not smoldering and catching things on fire. And
I mean, what I like about what we're talking about is, I mean, it sounds like as an inspector, having the ability to choose a particular material for the circumstances and not using a one-trick pony. It's kind of the way to go.
Yeah. So, you got a 2 foot void, but it's only like this big, as big as this table maybe, versus the whole porch. You can do it with the faster foam and just, get away with it, right? Move around a little bit, give it some time to cool off. But yeah, I mean, on the front end, there are some non-invasive ways to try and detect that, a rubber mallet or whatever, banging on there. If you hear a big void, then say, hey, I'd really like to, if you don't have a drill with you, so I'd really like to have somebody come out and
when you're hitting with a hammer, it's like dink is no void, or
right,
donk, or donk,
dink versus donk, exactly.
Yeah, it's gonna be the new acronym at work.
Dink versus
dink,
donk.
dink, donk, dink, donk, dink.
Yeah, and just have somebody come out and say, yeah, I would really like to have my operations guys come out and drill a few test holes to make sure that we're doing this the most efficient way and giving you an accurate price where there's not going to be a big overage or anything like that. And I mean, there's 2 trains of thoughts for pricing out there. I believe you guys probably do lump sum. I don't really know. Do you guys?
It depends.
Depends.
We have like a trifurcated system.
Gotcha. But yeah, I mean, nobody likes surprises like that, right?
Yeah,
and
right,
so
for sure.
just knowing when to say, hey, we really need to take another approach with this, with a different system, is important. And like I said, we got all those systems, but a lot of people only use 2 or 3 of them. Some only use 1.
Yeah,
but
I mean, you're hitting it on the head for me. I mean, the biggest thing, like when we're dealing with clients, and we're asking for the data up front. Geotechnical, all the exploratory stuff. If they don't have it, and I mean, I can throw, everything I can think of at it, but it might not, be the right thing, or it'll be too expensive. Having that data either is going to save you $10 million, or is going to save you, or you have to pay a little extra. It just depends.
Yeah. No, on the commercial side, I mean, it is tough to get a residential customer to spend the money on a geotech report.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Sometimes that's
Yeah,
more
it's
expensive than the
it's
repair.
$1,500 to $5,000.
Yeah, it could be more
Right.
than the repair.
Yeah.
And the loads on a lot of those things aren't that heavy, so it may not be necessary at all. But for instance, the whole deep injection thing, like I am very firm with everybody I work with. Like, don't even bring up the words deep injection if you're not going to get a soils report.
Right.
You don't know.
Or test
You don't know.
Right.
You can't.
Oh, we're
just
just going to
say,
do a little DI over here.
Yeah.
Put it in the ground.
Just because something settled doesn't mean that the soils, are appropriate
Right.
for that to happen.
Right.
So
You may try to put a rod in the ground and hit a karst, and then see you later, rod.
Yeah.
So
Bye. She gone.
she gone.
and I live in Knoxville, and we have some of the worst karst topography in the country.
So for people that don't know about what karsts mean, because I bet people that live here don't know what karsts mean.
Yeah.
So
karst is limestone.
Yeah.
Limestone has its weak spots. Water gets through there and just creates a lot of voids.
yeah. So water comes in from the surface or subsurface, and it migrates, and then it hits a limestone layer, and you've got different densities of the limestone, right? Like hard, semi-hard, soft, whatever it may be, right? Water hits it, finds these fractures, and then creates voids and caverns, right?
Exactly. And so a lot of sinkhole activity in East Tennessee. Not all of Tennessee is karst. Nashville doesn't really have that. Right. Bedrock's at like 10 feet in Nashville.
Yeah,
100%.
But in Knoxville, you can have it at 30 feet in one spot, and you move over here, and it's 90 feet.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. While I was with that geotechnical company, this was not a poly job, but they worked on an Amazon facility, and initially the building was going to sit here, right? So this is where they did the geotech borings. But then when they actually built the building, they said, "Nah, we want to make it run like this." Well, guess what? Over here, it's at 60, and over here, it's at 90.
Yeah.
So that job went from $9.5 million to 35.
Yeah. Just because they wanted to turn it.
Because of the extra depth for all the micropiles and the additional, and it was close to the airport. That area out there by the airport, Knoxville, is some of the worst karst in the country. It is bad. And they bought an old golf course in a hilly area. So where does all the water go on a golf course?
Yeah,
It goes
down.
to the low spots.
Yep.
Then it goes down, and it
Into
creates
the
all these
soil, and
voids
then
in
creates the
the
voids.
karst. Yeah. So, yeah, it was bad.
And karst is KARST, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Do you know where it got its name from?
No.
Like who it came up with karst? Was it like Edmund Siegfried Karsts? Or
I have no idea.
I'm super curious as to like why.
Well,
like
we'll
why
have to Wikipedia that here in a little bit and find out.
Yeah.
But I am not
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I
good.
mean, another fun fact is like polyurethane, right? Was Dr. Otto Bayer, but it's not Bayer Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
So, who knows where these names come from, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Andrew Karst. That'd be cool.
It would be
You're so
sweet.
karsty.
Andrew Karst Jones.
Man, this is a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to do this. It's always fun doing this. Tom, this is your first time on like a podcast or
Absolutely. it
anything?
is.
That's
I've
awesome.
Never been podcasted before.
That'll be cool. You'll be like, to go tell your kids, be like, "What up? I'm on a podcast." You're gonna
Yeah, it's
see
like the
it.
hip new thing to do.
Yeah, it's like if you don't have a podcast, like, why even get up?
I mean, we're so old, we might throw out a hip, you know?
Right. I mean, I'm just like, what up? Like, you don't have a podcast? Don't talk to me.
No,
Whatever.
man.
Just kidding. No, thank you so much. I really appreciate the
Thanks for having me on.
the
Good to see you,
relationship.
Tom.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Andrew.
Oh, yeah.
All
I
right.
see you all the time.
All right. See ya. All right, that'll work.